What's up, guys? It's your boy JK Prime Time, and I'm back here. I'm gonna, be doing a whole series just talking about what every single NFL team should do with their first round pick. First one we're gonna start with is the Browns. The Browns are an interesting spot because they do have the first and the fourth pick. Now, with this team, they've made, especially in the last week, they've made multiple moves to really build a foundation and really build a good core and actually just become a respectable team after all this time. Because last year, as everyone should know, they went 0-16. They weren't that good. They had some bright spots. I mean, Josh Gordon came back later in the year and really showed that even after being gone for so long, he was still is a good receiver when he has it. And having now a whole offseason to really prepare and training camp and preseason, things are definitely looking up for them. The moves of the past week, the two big ones was that they traded for Jarvis Landry, traded some mid-round picks, I think a third round pick for him. They also picked up Tyrod Taylor as well, and they were able to make these moves really without giving up any of those first round picks or not even like a first or second round pick. So they really got a good value out of these guys. Now the overall issue is for someone like Landry, is that he has 1 year left. There's rumors going around that he is going to look for a long-term extension with the Browns, but there is a chance, obviously, that he doesn't want to stay. But so they might have to worry at some point in this draft about going after some wide receiver depth, maybe second, third, fourth, maybe a mid-round guy on a good wide receiver. Even early second round, I feel like there'll be a guy like one guy that's definitely being given to them a lot is Christian Kirk. So I definitely think they could pull that off. But again, they have Landry, they have Gordon, they even have a decent Kenny Britt is decent. I know they have Corey Coleman. I don't know if he is a free agent or not at the moment, but he's definitely a guy that they could possibly even try to hold on to, try to develop. God forbid they do lose Jarvis Landry after this season. But when it comes down to their picks, some of their their most prominent needs is obviously quarterback. At least up until now, quarterback was easily their most number one. I mean, before then, they had DeShone Kizer, Cody Kessler, Kevin Hogan. They traded Kizer to the Packers for their young cornerback Randall. So they really picked up Tyrod in that trade. And so when it comes to that first pick, some of the other team needs are listed are like, DB, a cornerback, and even a right tackle. Because if you look at this team, a quarterback, I mean, especially before the Tyrod trade, can still make sense. And even now, I think it is still if you looked at their top five needs, you could definitely put quarterback in there. Because as Tyrod Taylor, I'm a fan of Tyrod Taylor. I like him. I think that the Bills really hurt him and really devalued him. And he's not a franchise guy, but he's definitely a guy. He's a good quarterback. He'll throw 60%. He'll throw for 3,000 yards. He'll provide stability at that position, even if he won't be that main guy to lead your franchise to a Super Bowl, which is one reason why, for me, when it comes to the first pick, is I think with the first pick that they should go after Saquon Barkley. I mean, Saquon Barkley came out at the Combine and just showed out. I loved what Saquon did. Everyone loved what Saquon did. With the first and the fourth pick, when it comes to running back, I mean, Geis is also there on the table, but I think Geis is more gonna fall into the mid first round. I don't think I'd spend the first or fourth pick on Geis. He's a good running back, more of a power back, but I really feel like Saquon is one of those players. That he's, just looking at a guy that can be seen as a once-in-a-generation type player. He can kind of do it all. He's fast. He has some power to him. He can receive out of the backfield. He can block. And as much as you could say that it's risky going after, running back so early because, this league has really been starting to, at least in the past 5-10 years, really gone into more of a passing league with quarterbacks being that number one thing that you need to win a Super Bowl. It's not like 2000s or even earlier in the 90s where you had that running back that would lead your team and be the star of your team. You really need that quarterback that's really going to be able to carry your team to that potential Super Bowl. But Saquon Barkley is just so good of a talent. I think to pass up, even though the last guy to go number one didn't really pan out at all. I think looking at guys like Leonard Fournette has really helped change the Jaguars to becoming a playoff contender really with that defense. And look at Todd Gurley. Todd Gurley was pretty much an MVP candidate. He really helped with he really helped out with having that team really be what it was. He was that start player coming out of rookie year. As you could see from me, I was the guy who thought when he was drafted that he was drafted early, but he's really come out and proved everyone wrong, especially with this last season, because he's been a great receiving threat and a great running threat, and was an MVP candidate this year, which is something that you can't say much about about many running backs. So I think we're getting Saquon Barkley with number one pick. It's definitely what they need, because he isn't going to be available. I highly doubt he's going to be available because the Giants are a team that really need a running back, and I could easily see them doing that to get the load off of Eli and help that offensive line, because how I see it is that with a great running back, he can somewhat help cover the deficiencies that you have with the offensive line. And while he might not be out and become an all-pro with an offensive with a terrible offensive line, he can make the offensive line, he could shore up some deficiencies with that line. And then even looking at this line, they have some good players on this line. They have one of the more solid lines in the league. At left tackle, they have Joe Thomas. They have Joe Bitonio at left guard. Center is J.C. Treader. Right guard is Kevin Zeitler. The only issue is their right tackle, but again, that can also be something that they shore up later in the later rounds of the draft. Even early second round, God forbid someone like maybe even Orlando Brown really slips in the draft. But overall, for the first pick, I definitely think Saquon Barkley is really the guy they need to get to really shore up. Because, they have Isaiah Crowell last year. He had 206 attempts, 853. He only had 2 touchdowns. But I really think you need a 3-down running back. Isaiah Crowell's a good runner. Duke Johnson, again, he's a good receiving back. But I think Saquon Barkley is that 3-down back that a team really needs. It can really help the Cleveland Browns. And even take pressure off of someone like Tyrod, so it's not just, Tyrod focusing majority on the throws. Even though he's a good players around him, he definitely is not like a franchise guy, and I don't think you should have Tyrod throwing 40 passes a game. Now, when it comes to the fourth pick, they could go with a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick as a DB, which is definitely a good pick. Fitzpatrick is seen as one of the best players. He's kind of, you don't know what he could be. Some teams are saying he's a safety. He could be a DB. You kind of put him at either of those spots. But in my opinion, I think that the Browns should go quarterback. Tyrod Taylor is a good bridge. If not mistaken, he only has one official year, but I think he has one or two club options after that. So if they want to, they could still keep him. And I think overall, quarterback-wise, at the number 4 pick, any of those 4 guys, the top 4 guys would really work for them. If a running back's gone, I could see possibly the Giants getting quarterback. I don't see Indianapolis getting one. So really, the best quarterback for them, I would think, would maybe even be a guy like, I think Josh Allen. Josh Allen, while again you could last year, under 60% completion percentage, a very inconsistent player, but he's from Wyoming. A big thing normally with those up north cities, weather. I think you set him up with a good core around him, obviously, with that line and the receivers that you have in place. And also with Tyrod, he could be a good bridge quarterback. I think if you give Josh Allen a year or two to really sit behind, learn the game, perfect his, mechanics, and help improve his accuracy. You look at his highlight reel, and he's the type of guy that those great passes that you see, those model passes, he just makes, and you don't know how he makes them. He could be running, down, scrambling outright, throw across his body, and perfectly deliver a ball in there. I think they definitely love his arm. The combine, again, it is the combine, but he threw like a 70-yard pass. He's a cannon of an arm. He really needs to improve his accuracy, but I feel like spending a year or two behind could really help him, and I think he could be a good pick, because I think he does have the most potential out of these quarterbacks. And I really feel like just where he came from, he definitely is a guy I feel like that could be willing to adapt to that rough Cleveland weather, especially as you get later in the season. And places like that get snow. It's definitely a big impact on the play of the quarterbacks, because the weather does have a big impact. He's a big arm, can really get the ball down deep. But once he spends a year behind Tyrod, he definitely, I think, can improve his accuracy and be a great quarterback. And those are really the two guys that I think that they should go after. Tell me what you guys think down there in the comments. And besides that, I'm out.